we are going to take a look at the game 9 of the World Championship match being played between the current world champion Ding Liren and the World Championship challenger, the youngest World Championship challenger Gukesh Maraju, being played in Singapore from the 25th of November to the 13th of December. Now, Gukesh was white in this match, and he has to press a bit as white, and I quite like his what he plays, what he decided to play in this game. He started with d4, and after knight f6, c4, e6, g3, bishop b4, bishop d2, bishop e7, and bishop g2, d5, knight f3, castles. We reach a very common position in the Catalan, and I like Gukesh's choice of opening because he wanted to, you know, press a bit, and Catalan has a very good reputation of being practically slightly advantageous for white in almost all the variations, and always keeping some slight hope for white to press for a win. And but that being said, Ding Liren himself is a great expert. Is one of the greatest experts in the Catalan because he has has been playing the Catalan as white um, since he was probably a teen, and he has huge experience as white here. And that being said, as black, he knows most of the ways to equalize well. But of course, Gukesh has some new ideas up his sleeves because he's playing the World Championship match, and let's see what he goes for here. So Dink goes for the closed Catalan with c6, queen c2, knight d7, and here we see uh, the the new move that Gukesh brings to the board. It's not entirely new, but it's like the probably the 10th most played move in this position. And Gukesh continues with bishop c3. Now his idea is to develop his knight via d2 and play something like e4 in the future, and this bishop on c3 is doing great. Probably he's going to play b3 or he's going to play b4, and then after potential exchanges in the center after d4, knight e4, sorry, d4 and okay, knight into e4, and something like d5 coming up in the future with this rook looking against the queen in the center on the potentially open d file. uh, there will be a lot of initiative for white, but as we'll see, Ding is playing bishop b7, and after knight d2, queen c7, Gukesh plays rook c1, rook d8, and I believe something like e4 would have been a great choice here for Gukesh, but because after takes, the position is kind of simplifying. But after, let's say, knight f6, Gukesh can play queen e2, and something like knight e5 is coming, and I believe there is a very small advantage for white. And after something like c5 may be possible, but I believe something like d5 might be interesting. And after knight f6, like there are some ideas where white just sacrifices the d5 pawn, maybe just queen e2 here. And let's say after ed5, I think something like bishop e5 is coming, and white has some initiative in this position, but I'm not so sure if it's enough for a pawn, because I think after queen c6, because clearly after queen c6 there is something like knight h4 and knight f5 is coming, because white cannot really release the tension in the center because his queen is pinned against the g2 bishop. But I believe after queen c8, black is able to get away with his extra pawn. So that being said, after c5 maybe something like queen e2 is a better choice, but after cd4, bishop d4, let's say knight c5 or even bishop c5, I think it's an objectively equal position. But interestingly enough, Gukesh here goes for b4, and trying to go for c5 next. Let's say black plays something stupid like h6, he's going c5 next, and this bishop is just completely dead on b7. It probably has to come to a6 looking at this diagonal, but after, let's say, bishop a6, e4, let's say takes, and what is this bishop doing here exactly? Like, it is looking down this diagonal, but there are no no targets on this diagonal, right? So this bishop is as good as nothing in this position at least. You could claim that after knight f6, something like um, queen d1, knight d5, white is getting a very strong knight here, but I think after bishop d2 and knight e5 coming next, I think white is slightly better, and also something like a4 b5 is coming in the future. So after b4 being correctly goes for c5, um, challenging the center, and after bc5 Gukesh plays queen b2. And here after knight b6, Gukesh plays a great move, bishop f5. Knight b6 was played to kind of trying to release the tension in the center, threatening something like knight into c4 or d into c4, and if white goes for, let's say, cd5, it doesn't make much sense out, because after knight b d5 this bishop is falling, and this bishop is the soul of white's position in this game, kind of, and if it's falling, then it is already black who might be playing for the advantage. But after knight b6, Gukesh correctly plays bishop a5, and after dc4 he plays knight takes c4, and here Ding makes a slightly dubious decision. He gives up his light square bishop, which I did not like, because it just gives white the double bishop advantage, and this light square bishop is very strong in this position, because it's looking down this long diagonal, and something like knight e5 and knight c6 might be coming in the future, because the c6 square is very weak, and also the c file is under white's control, and this queen on c7 is not doing a great job. So I was thinking maybe something like knight into c4 might be more useful to play as black, but after you could say what is happening here, let's say after bishop c7, yeah, but actually I'm going to play knight into b2, and you could say that after bishop d8, knight d1, bishop e7, um, the pieces are equal, and probably even white is winning. Yes, that's right, but what if I just play rook into d8 here? Yeah, so black is currently an exchange up, that is, he has two pieces for a rook, and white is in huge danger here, and after, let's say, something like rook d2, just knight a4 is coming, and this knight is getting away safely. After, let's say, something like knight b6, and black is going to take on c5 next, on d4 next, and well, he has to take some care, because there might be some ideas like rook c7, but in general black is completely winning in this position. But after knight takes c4, white is not so stupid. Gukesh clearly had seen rook takes c4, but after queen s5, queen b7, here there was a very strong move, which is probably what Ding had missed during his game, and that is the move knight d7. Now, what is the idea of this move? The idea of this move is to um, protect the c5 pawn, and after, let's say, dc5, black is going to play rook b8, and after something like queen e4, now black can take on c5 with the knight, because if he had taken directly, the e7 bishop is falling. So after rook b8, the engine is showing the best move for white is queen c6, but after rook bc8, again attacking the pawn on c5 indirectly, and after something like queen b7, rook b8, the engine is saying that the best best continuation of this game is to fizzle out into a draw after queen c6, and white has nothing better than that. That being said, after knight d7, there is a way to continue the game for white, that is with queen b3, but I guess after something like I don't know, maybe knight b6, and takes on d4 next, or maybe I have to be a bit careful about that, because after rook c1, if I take here, then knight takes d4 is coming, and the rook on a8 is hanging, and also white is threatening to play knight c6, attacking both the queen and the rook. But maybe here I think the best move for white for black is c4, and let's say after white retreats with queen c2, there is rook c8, and then knight d5 is coming, and it's a completely equal position, I believe. yes, white has the center, he can grab the center with e4, but this c4 pawn is also quite strong for black. And given that we have an opposite color bishop in a middle game, I think the best way to end the game will be a draw. But Ding misses this continuation. He missed that 97 move here over here after knight c4, knight c4, rook c4, and now queen f5, queen v7. He misses this move knight d7, I believe, and here after knight c4, Ding is playing bishop into f3. A very committal decision, giving up the bishop pair to white, and it's exposing a couple of weaknesses in black's camp. So after bishop takes b6, a6, bishop f3. Just to take note, after bishop takes f3, there is knight takes c4. That's why bishop takes f3 is a blunder, and let's say bishop c7, as we have seen in this line, bishop d8, rook d8. Black is just an exchange up, and after rook takes c4, queen takes f5, as we have seen in the previous variation where rook takes c4 was working. Here there is no bishop on b7 because it was already exchanged with the knight on f3, so there is no queen takes b7 here, and that's why black is a clear piece up. But after bishop f3, bishop b6, very important move, intermezzo. After a b6, bishop f3, rook s6. Here Gukesh plays queen b5, which is kind of fizzling out the game into a draw by force. Gukesh had like 1 or 26 minutes in this position, and Ding had only half an hour. And this is a very natural point to all the viewers by now, because as we have seen, Gukesh has a great preparation in this coming to this World Championship match, and Ding doesn't have a lot of preparation, and he's exhausting a lot of his time in the opening. And but it's very it's very interesting that he still is finding the best way to continue, or at least not losing by force, because at World Championship level preparation, the theory is like cutting edge, and if you miss if you just make 1 or 2 inaccuracies in a row, then you're just done for. But Ding is finding his way very accurately. He's taking time, but he's finding his way out. And here the best move for Gukesh would have been to play knight e5 to continue the game, threatening to play knight c6 and then knight takes e7, taking this important bishop on e7. And I believe after something like black could play something like knight d5 and rook 8 next, putting more pressure on the a6 pawn, a2 pawn, and this position is it's still kind of playable for white, maybe after something like d takes, bishop takes, and now e3. But I would say that after rook a1, it's rook a8, black is having a lot of initiative. But there is an interesting variation with the rook d5, e d5, and bishop d5, which I don't know it's whose favor it is in, but it's quite a complex position for black, and I believe that this was the best shot for Gukesh to press for a win, because this rook on a8 is hanging, and also the pawn on s7 is very weak. It is most likely going to fall in the next move, but something like rook f8 might be playable, and I have to think what black can do here. Interesting. Actually, I'm considering a move like rook c4, and my point is to play rook f4 next and attack the pawn on f7. And black cannot really push out the knight on e5 with bishop d6, because the queen on c7 is hanging, and after I think maybe rook f7 is possible, but here I think rook g4 is a possibility, is a very strong option for white, threatening both to play knight c6 and knight f7, and the g7 pawn is hanging here, threatening mate, and I think it's a very very dangerous situation for black here. But anyways, let's see what happened in the game. After Gukesh plays queen b5, Ding correctly takes on a2, and after knight b6, queen a7, very accurate moves. I believe what Gukesh missed was after something like dc5, rook d1, there is rook f5, and after, let's say, queen b4, a very important move to play rook takes c5 here, not bishop takes c5. You can take 1 minute to find out what is happening after bishop takes c5. Yes, it's queen takes c5, and after rook c5 there is rook d8 mate in the next move. But rook takes c5 is leading to an equal position, and there are no more tricks for white here. But after knight b6, queen a7, queen b1, rook b8, dc5, rook a6 is a very strong move by Ding, threatening to play bishop takes c5, and then just fizzling out into a draw after rook takes b6. And there is no way for Gukesh to prevent that from happening. Queen b5 was played, and after bishop takes c5, queen c5, queen b6, rook b6, we fizzle out into a drawn in game, and after rook c6 takes, this game was drawn very very shortly. I think Gukesh made some pawn weaknesses. I don't think this was necessary to exchange the knight and bishops and get such weak pawns here. But anyways, this position is completely drawn, and it doesn't make much difference. After rook c2, king f3, rook d2, rook a3, g6, it's a completely equal position, and after e5, f5, we reach a theoretically drawn endgame. I mean, not even theoretically, it's just a very simple draw for white, and this is how the game ended in a draw. So a very interesting game. Okay, not as interesting as the previous ones, of course, because none of the sides got clearly good opportunity to play for a win. But I really believe that Gukesh had great preparation here, and he got a lot of time advantage against Ding, which he could not make count. But after the game 9, we are the match is tied at 4.5, and it's still left to be seen who reaches 7.5 points earliest. Still 5 more games to go, and in a world championship match 5 more games is a lot, and a lot can happen in those games, and I'm really waiting to see all the action. So tomorrow is a rest day, and I'll be back recapping round number 10 after day after tomorrow. And I hope you like this video, and if you enjoyed it, do subscribe the channel, and also like the video, and let me know in the comment section what you think about the game, and who you think is going to get the last laugh. So goodbye, have a good night, have a good day, night, evening, afternoon, wherever you are, and yeah, Hare Krishna.